Welcome, Jürgen Hase.
Thank you. Thank you. So things are changing. Thanks a lot. Really warm welcome. Warm welcome. If I'm coming from Doha, so from my side, it's not really a warm welcome. In Doha, actually, we have beyond 50 degree. Last week, we measured 58 degree outside temperature. It's a little bit different compared to this region. So. Yes, my name is Jürgen Hase. I was responsible for Ooredoo as a director for M2M. Things are changing. That's the reason I believe it's more interesting. I will start my new activity 1st of July for Reliance. Reliance is one of the huge players in India. So that means today you will find in my presentation a mix between greenfield smart city approach and really smart city activities in Asia. So let's see how it works. No? High tech. It's a classic one. Okay. Good. I'm
Magic.
good. Thank you, magic. For a rabbit, nothing is magic. Okay, smart cities in Asia. What I want to explain first, we have learned a lot about smart cities. The last years, I've worked for Ooredoo. That was a greenfield approach in Doha, Lusail. I will explain a little bit more about Lusail, and in the Emirates regarding Muscat. But that's believe much more interesting. I want to explain more about the Indian market, what's happened there, how the market is growing, and also to Indonesia, because Ooredoo has a part in Indonesia, and I was also a part of the team in Indonesia, Jakarta, for the smart city. The world is exploring. Clear. We are talking about most of the people, more than 50% are living in the future in the city. And if we are talking about a region like Indonesia, we are talking more about ultra-connected cities, huge countries, huge cities. For example, I will move next month to Mumbai, and I've learned in Mumbai are living around about 22 million people, one city. It's a huge, huge city. And Jakarta, I believe, is the second biggest city worldwide. They are living around about 30 million people. And if I compare it to the presentation before, and we will see it later, the approach is a total different one. It's much more a survival mode to let that the city is working itself compared to make it more brilliant as in principle. So whatever we are doing at the end, today we are connecting things for the future. We are talking about the big data story. And I believe there was a really interesting statement from Michael Jensen. At the end, if you think what was happened 2.5 years before, what we have collected 2 years before, what we have collected on data, what's coming up now. Whatever we are doing today is connecting the data, and for the future really thinking about big data, how to analyze the cities, the data of the city. Internet of people, I want to add one more point, is the internet of brain. Whatever we are talking about, Internet of Things, future things, is much more, it's not only the business models, we have to think much more what could happen, what could be new for the future, how we can implement it, and especially this is independent of smart cities, but I like this picture, at the end, if you're talking about smart cities, we have to talk about how to add all these new city services in cities like Jakarta and others. I want to start with India, then to Indonesia, that's the Asia region, the huge cities, and then to the Muscat, and in Qatar, it's Lusail. So, India, if you think about, we talked about, it was interesting before your statement regarding how many people are coming to Vienna per year. The statement here is if you're talking about India, in an urban area, 20 to 30 people per minute are coming to a huge city like Mumbai or Delhi or others. That means it's a pure survival mode. I want only to explain you the dimension about what we are talking. It's really a total different world. The next figures are like, we are talking about near to 1 billion people in urban cities. I'm for the future in India responsible for the IoT market for Reliance. It means it's 1/7 of the world population, what we have to manage in India overall. So this is the reason why, for example, in India, the city's government, they have started an initiative, the 100 Smart Cities, and they have done a huge activities to select the 100 smart cities. They have started a competition between the cities. And I want to explain this a little bit more. In principle, if they're talking about smart cities, there's three big things. One is retrofitting, the second one is redevelopment and greenfield. But to be honest, most of the cities today talking about retrofitting and redevelopment in this region. So, the big picture, what are the main streams and main verticals? So smart governance, clear, whatever they are doing is much more electronic, but that's independent of the Asia region. You will find the same, for example, in the Middle East. My lesson learned in the last 2 years in the Middle East was, for example, whatever has happened, there's nobody sending you a letter. Whatever's happened is electronic, full digital. There's nobody who's sending you any letter or anything like this. It's full electronic. So smart energy, clear. If you talk about, you will see it a few minutes later, smart energy. In India is a plan to start smart meter projects in the next years, and not to start to finish in the next 5 years. And we are talking in India only about the urban region, round about 126 million households. If I compare to my job before for Deutsche Telekom, we have in Germany around about 40 million households to connect. That means it's a different world. And why? It's not to make it more efficient. The simple things is energy will be stolen. They want to get some money back. They are delivering power to the households. They want to get some money back. Smart environment is also clear. It's about water, wasting and other things. Smart transportation. Whoever has been in Mumbai, is anybody here who has been in the region like Mumbai or Indonesia? If you have been there, or you have ever been in a traffic jam, it's a wonderful land in Vienna, believe me. It's unbelievable. If you have a street with 3 lines, here we are driving 3 cars side by side. In India, you have the feeling, oh, it could be 8 or 10 in parallel. Whatever square meter is space, they will use it. That means you have to manage the smart transportation. There's a project, for example, in Mumbai planned that all the public transport systems have to be tracked. In Mumbai, we are talking about round about 6 million connected devices for public transport. Have to be connected for the future. Another example, also new, I believe I've never seen it in Germany, I believe it's also not happened in Vienna, is the trains have no doors. The trains have no doors. The people are wherever in the train, outside the train, in India, and they have to manage all these things to add the security. I only want you come to the journey and have a feeling what's happening in this region. That's the reason why, how they are working. Smart communication is clear, and smart buildings. If you talk about the Asia region, I've explained this in one presentation before also, the buildings are higher and higher, and there's no space. And these regions, it's China, and it's also India, the region with the high increasing area of construction of new buildings. There's the elevator pitch, and all these activities are coming there. So I do not want to explain all these details. I believe the presentation will be shared. I've already explained the 130 million smart meter, water waste, I believe this is clear. Make a city more safe is also a part in Indonesia, and the same like in Mumbai, Delhi. You have to make it much more safer. And the last part here, you see world's 3rd largest construction market by 2020. We're talking about more than 11 million new households per year, which is necessary in a region like this. Insurance, wellness, these are more or less the second wave. The first wave is much more survival for this region. So these are the different solutions I can explain later. One part I want to explain how the process in India has worked or is working. The plan was we want to get 100 smart cities, select them in 6 months roundabout, and each of them have to make an offer to the government what they can offer, what they can deliver in the space of IoT. They have split it in two parts. One part is you have to deliver minimum 2 services which all the other cities can use in the same way. It's typical public Wi-Fi, and the second one is parking, because they need space for parking, how to manage these things. And then they have to offer 4 additional services which could be much more customized for the local approach. So this they have done, and then they have selected these 100 smart cities. Plus, it will be founded by the city, by the government. They're spending a lot of money, plus private companies. It's allowed that all these private companies can bring in money so that the people really and the cities can invest much more in these services. It's not pure public sponsored, it's also sponsored by private people. Good. Here you find how it was a sponsorship. This is coming to Indonesia. That was India. Now we have talked about 1/7 of the population. Now we're talking about Indonesia. If you're talking about Indonesia, we're talking about 250 million people. It's small compared to the rest, but it's a lot. They have selected more or less the same process. They've chosen 50 smart cities. And these 15 smart cities, like Jakarta, they've started to implement services and also, this is interesting for me, it's not only survival to stimulate the economy in this region. That's the reason why it's allowed that private investors can step in, so that the principle, the economy is increasing. So the application itself is more or less the same. You find all the time smart government, smart people, smart in any form of smart. I do not want to explain in detail. What they have done is interesting. In each of these cities, they have implemented a dashboard so that they can remote monitor all these activities, applications per smart city. And they are willing to share this information. It's not only an information for the government or for the city, the owner of the city. It's much more public information so that others can pick up this information and share it and use it for their own services. Like the mapping for most cities is also if they create new buildings where they have to do it best and all these things, they're using these data. Here you see one of these smart city portals, and you find it for each of these smart cities in Indonesia, for example. One example from Jakarta, if you're talking about Jakarta, there are around about 15 rivers in the city, and now there's rain. It's the same like in Mumbai. The next 2 months it will rain. I came from Doha, there's no rain, and now it's go to 2 months rain. It's also a different interesting part of the story. So the rivers, the flood is coming, and they have to take care of people. How it works? For this one, they're using Twitter, because for example, Jakarta the city was one of the most used Twitter people. All of them using Twitter and sending the geo position plus the information for flood, so that they can use the normal existing sensor network plus the information for the people to take care of people. That's important for the flood time here in Jakarta. So, next part, that was survival areas in Asia. We have talked about India, we have talked about Indonesia. Now coming to the greenfield approach. One example is Masdar, smart city. Whatever happens, the same in Doha and in Masdar. They are selecting an area of this desert and thinking, so what I can create here, what I want to build up. They have done it in the Emirates, in Masdar, create a new city. There's a plan for 2020 up to 2025 to invest billions of dollars for a new full greenfield approach. Here we are talking about autonomous cars, about solar panels, whatever you find best in the world, it will be implemented in this region. This is coming up, for example, in Masdar. The application are more or less the same, a little bit smaller, and again on a total different level compared to India and Indonesia. In this case, it's really the best of the best they're implementing. You see here, for example, in this region, on the right side down, the area power balance. Whatever they are doing, they're also looking more on the energy, the power consumption, how these things are working, so that there more or less is a balance in the power in these regions they are creating in a new way. They all knowing, yes, we have oil enough for the next 20 or 50 or 100 years. I believe in Qatar is 170 years. But they're also thinking whatever's coming up new, they want to, the power balance, the power consumption has to be much, much better. They have installed a clear KPI plan, how to measure it right, if they're installing it now step by step. So, Lusail. In Lusail, I'm knowing a little bit more because, you know, Qatar will be in 6 years presenting the World Cup, Football World Cup in 2022. Only point I want to explain to everybody, you believe it will be hot at that time. You know it will be around Christmas. The World Cup during Christmas time in Doha will be much colder. You can expect it's not as warm as here. It will be, I don't know, 20 degrees or less. It's not the summer games, it's really the winter games for these regions. It will be much colder. So what they are doing, there's a new city under construction. You can see it daily, how this city is increasing. For example, the plan is here in Lusail, is more or less in the center of Doha, or, yeah, more or less. They're creating a new area that round about 200 people can live there. 200,000 people can live there. Greenfield. With all the new function, all the new services you ever can think about. There's a marine area, I believe you can see it here on the next slide. There are different things you can implement here in a greenfield approach. Smart mobility, smart living, smart governance again, whatever is coming up. But compared to the region I explained before, a totally different one. My lesson learned, for example, for the Middle East region is you never talk about money. If they want to do it, they build it. There's no question if or yes, should we do it, especially, for example, in Qatar, if they talk about the World Cup. Whatever they want to do for the World Cup, they will invest. No question if or where's the return on investment, they will do it. And it's great. All the new things will coming up there. Compared to the other part, I believe, and this is more or less the quintessence of my presentation, to Indonesia and Jakarta, to Indonesia and India, where the approach is much more in the survival mode. So here you see in Lusail all the different services, thousands of services which will be implemented. Last question. We are talking, I started my presentation with big data. What's happened with collect all the data, what will happen for the future. And I like this picture. Who's the owner of all these data? And especially the picture. Who's paying for what and how we can share all this information. I believe this is the part, the same discussion I've had here in Europe is coming up in the Middle East region and in the Asia region. Who's the owner of the data? What is with data privacy? A huge part, so there's the cloud. The regulator is all new, how to manage it in the right way. So that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully it gave you a small overview regarding your presentation, Vienna, and things which are happening in the Middle East region, Greenfield, and in the Asia region, which is much more how to manage mega cities. Thank you very much.